Welcome students. Today we are going to learn about architecture of the dbms. The database architecture is typically organized into the multiple levels, each serving a specific purpose in managing and accessing the data. The commonly recognized levels in the database architecture include internal, external layer, and the conceptual layer. DBMS architecture refers to the structure and components of a software system designed to manage and organize the databases. DBMS design depends upon its architecture. The external level is the individual user view, the conceptual level is the community user view, and the internal level is the physical and the storage view. You can see in this the architecture diagram. Let's learn in detail. In the external level, this external level describes that part of the database that is relevant to each user. It mainly holds information related to the user. In the conceptual level, describes what data is stored in the database and the relationship among the data. It hides details of the physical storage structures and concentrates on the describing entities, data, types, relationships, user operations, and the constraints. In the internal level, it is the lowest level of the data abstraction. It's close to the physical storage methods. This level describes how the data is stored in the database. It covers the data structure and the file organizations. Now we are learn about the DBMS 1 tier, 2 tier and 3 tier architecture. First, in the one tier architecture, also known as a single tier architecture, all the components needed to run an application are present on the single machine. This setup is straightforward and typically involves running the application and managing the database on the same system. For example, a simple spreadsheet program like Microsoft Excel is an example of the one tier architecture. The application and the data are both on the user's computer. Next, in two tier architecture, also known as a two tier architecture, the application is divided into the two main components: the client, which is user interface, and the server, which is database. In the client tier, which is front end, this tier is responsible for the user interface and the application logic. And the server tier, which is back end, this tier manages the database and handles the data processing. Example of the two tier architecture, which is a traditional client server database application where a desktop application, which is client, communicates with the database server. The client manages the user interface and the application logic, while the server handles the data storage and the processing. In three tier architecture, the application is divided into three main components, each serving a specific purpose. These components are the presentation tier, application tier, and the data tier. Example of the three tier architecture is a web-based application where the user interacts with the browser, the application server processes the request, and the database server stores and retrieves the data. In three tier architecture, there are three layers are present, which you can see in the architecture diagram. First is a database layer. DB resides along with its query processing language. Then the application layer for the user. This presents an abstract view of the database. It acts as a mediator between the user and the database. Next is a user or the presentation layer. End user operates on this tier and they know nothing about any existence of the database beyond this layer.